On this episode of AV Week, Plantronics rebrands as Poly, dealing with counterfeit AV products and the power of partnerships. All that and more next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 395, recorded Friday, March 22nd, 2019. Bridging the Gap.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Atlas IED, innovative audio solutions for every business environment. And by
Atlona, the go-to provider for AV signal distribution and control in corporate, higher education, and residential spaces.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to discuss the news and information we have gathered this week, first and foremost, an old friend. She's not old, but I've known her a long time. Her name is Margot Duwahi, one of the fabulous and smartest people that I know. How are you, ma'am?
I'm excellent. My spirit is immortal, so, I'll take the agelessness any day. Happy spring, everyone.
Happy spring. Also with us, a couple newbies, so be nice to them. First and foremost, Helen Kang from DSE, Digital Signage Expo, and also Expo Nation. Welcome, ma'am.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And also with us from the newly rebranded Poly, and I swear that's going to take me a long time to get used to, so we're just going to kick it off. Poly. Sam Kennedy, Chief Evangelist, which I still think is a cool title. How are you, sir?
Thank you. I'm doing fantastic. We're still recovering from the week, but it's been a great one.
Yeah, you guys. You announced the name, and we'll get to that in a second. But you announced it at Enterprise Connect 2019 down in Orlando, so we'll actually touch on that. But let's kick this off. This story comes to us from our friends over at AV Magazine. Plantronics rebranded as Poly following Polycom merger. The name was chosen as Poly means many, representing the many elements of the company's history, while the three legs of a new logo are inspired by Polycom's conference phone, which if you've been into a conference phone anytime in the last 20 years, you have seen the previous Polycom phone that they're talking about. Sam, we're going to kick off with this with you on this. It's been a year. It's actually almost a year to the date that Plantronics announced the acquisition of Polycom. Why did it take a year? I guess is the first way to start this. And I understand the Poly, I understand the Mini. This is definitely kind of a Plantronics, saying, well, look, we're in this UC space for real, and we're in it for the long haul by virtue of the fact that we're rebranding now. What took the year? Was it just getting everybody on board, or was it just developing and seeing where you guys wanted to take it?
I think it was a combination of all of those things. Is it was a lot of coming together, figuring out who was who, and what do we want to do moving forward. I don't think anyone was in a rush to just change the name and change the brand just to do it. It was what we want. We really wanted to do it right. I think looking back, it's we were looking at doing just a separate event on our own. But we felt Enterprise Connect was the right time. It was a lot of the key partner. A big part of what we do is our integration and partnerships. And so where everyone else was there, we thought Enterprise Connect would be the right time. And so that's why we chose this week. I wouldn't read into it any more than that. I mean, it was really just building around this strong partnership and having everyone really be part of this big launch. So I think it really it turned out to be well worth it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about Enterprise Connect. It is turning into a rather significant show for folks, especially in the unified communication space. Yes, you guys announced this week, but this was not the only thing that you talked about. You had over 50 new product announcements. Not going to have you go through every one. This is only a 30-minute program. But give me one or two that you guys were exceptionally proud of, or maybe ones that you think that were, was it people should definitely pay attention to.
Sure. I'll give you. There was a lot. I'll give you a handful of ones that were top of mind for me. One, we set up we announced a new set of phones, much tied around Microsoft Teams, and so as our customers are moving to Microsoft Teams from a telephony and UC platform, we have a new set of devices tied to native Teams. I'd say that was a big one. Also, we announced Alexa for Business running directly on the Trio. So really driving that different use case. I think it's a completely new or a workflow that many users are used to at home, bringing that natural language processing and driving your experience all via your voice, I think is a big trend that I think we'll start to see over the next few years. And that natively on our devices is, I believe, a very significant, kind of the beginning of a whole new workflow for users. And I'd say, I know you always said only do one or two, but I'll give you a third one. While we announced the Polycom Studio about a month ago, that's our all-in-one speaker bar, microphone, speakers, camera, all built into one. It did win. It did win for the category it was for Enterprise Connect. I feel like it was in everybody's booth at the show. So while that one isn't one we announced this week, I think we kind of put it into the overall announcements that we did, and I was extremely successful and award winning. So pretty proud of that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Margot, from a standpoint of somebody who's watched this space for a long time, this was one of the more significant mergers and acquisitions. And let's kind of constrain this time frame here. The last 10 years, we've seen a number of what I would say blockbuster M&As, right? Not only in the integration market, but also in the manufacturer side. Very few of them, though, had the $1 billion behind it, right? And I think I can count on one hand. I could be wrong about that. So this is one of the more significant ones we've seen. What does this say, and what does this mean? Not only obviously that we're a year after the merger and acquisition, but the fact that Polycom and Plantronics are saying, we are in this UC space by virtue of this rebrand.
Well, I think it's really electrifying, and I think it really points exactly to the trend of how is everything going to tie together. There's no shortage of screens, of conference room solutions, of even native solutions that have Zoom baked in, that have Teams baked in, that have Skype for Business baked in. But what's really interesting, and I think what my readers both crave and are observing, are frictionless systems, so that they can deploy at scale, so that they can get all of their remote users, their on-site users up and running, so they're collaborating in real time. They're not fielding like a billion skillion urgent help desk calls that they need to update a driver. There's plugins not working. So with an acquisition like this, where you have the ubiquity of Polycom, that conference room, that phone solution that we all know, we can see it with, or we can imagine it as you walk into any conference room. And what I'm getting from the coverage of Enterprise Connect is that the merger really creates a way to pivot and stay absolutely agile as AI-enabled solutions come into the, user experience becomes more important, the voice assistance, as machine learning kind of brings up the AI-enabled Alexa for Business systems, that they're going to position themselves in a place that can grow and adapt as the user needs change and grow and adapt. But again, going right back to that frictionless way of thinking about deployments at scale. And so, the soft codec trend is just going to continue. And I think this is really interesting, and I'm going to be watching it closely. And again, my perspective is from the tech manager side of things. As the editor at large of AV Technology, I'm always thinking about the IT manager and the AV manager and what their pain points are and where they need to add value. And so something like this really, again, it just gets to that point of bringing the solutions together in a more comprehensive way. And it's really interesting. And again, this sort of breathtaking number of announcements is also fascinating too. I was not at Enterprise Connect this year. I had to miss it, but I've been there in the past, and it really does continue to grow in relevance in the tech manager community. And even in the press release that I read, the IT manager gets a lot of name dropping, as it were, that kind of new decision maker really in the AV conversation as UCC and telephony kind of merges again into that soft codec space. So definitely on trend and really interesting. So it's great to hear the inside word from you, Sam.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that and Margot and I talked about this, both, behind the scenes, and also, her and I talked about on this air, and that IT decision maker is becoming more and more important. Helen, you guys are actually courting, DSE is courting both the IT and the tech manager when it comes to DSE specifically. As somebody who runs, helps run a show for this, talk for a second about, Sam said that their soundbar is not only in their booth, but in several others. How important is that as, for one brand to be spread out over the course of a show in different places from, not just a marketing place standpoint, but also from a product placement standpoint?
Definitely, I think we're all headed that way. I don't think if you look at any product or solution, it's no longer siloed out. Everything has to interact with one another. When customers or end users are shopping for solutions, they're looking all for interactivity. Not only interactivity within the systems and the technologies of what they place, whether it's in a workplace environment or it's in a retail environment, and they're trying to interact with their customers or foot traffic or whatnot. Everything has to kind of talk to one another, almost like an open system, be able to play along with one another. So I think it's very critical to have technologies or products that can be showcased within other facets or other solutions, you might say.
Very good. Next story comes to us from our friends over at Commercial Integrator. There was a raid on Counterfeit audio manufacturer, impacts multiple companies. Shure, Harman, Sennheiser, and Yamaha products were seized in the Chinese manufacturer plant raid late last year. Margo, I want to start with you on this. Now, I'm not going to ask how big of a problem it is, because I think that the answer to that is relative. But what can tech managers, what can IT managers, what can commercial integrators do to make sure that the products they're getting are genuinely authentic products from the manufacturer?
I mean, absolutely vet your vendor, know if it's from the IT perspective. And I know there is a variety of procurement strategies, and they continue to diversify actually as, as the years go on. I think the distribution models have changed, and they're changing a little bit, but quality. I mean, if you can't point to like the supply chain and know exactly where the direction is, then I think that's a big problem. I actually don't hear too much from the tech manager side of things that they're interfacing or worrying about counterfeit products. Maybe it is because they have vetted integrators that they're working with. I worry about it. I think that there's not a lot of checks and balances, in terms of overseas manufacturing. Counterfeiting is incredibly hard. A friend of mine who owns a manufacturing facility in Shenzhen, China, she and her husband have had to go over a number of times because their patent protections are very dicey in a lot of ways. And so I think that, I'm not going to go on a sort of political moment, but that's what's important about having communications between embassies, to make sure that companies that are based here or based anywhere, whether it's, BIAMP or QSC or Shure, or any of the number of folks that are mentioned in this article from Commercial Integrator, if their patents are being stolen and then replicated and then counterfeited, it's an extraordinary problem with exponential reach, because their good name is at stake. Their quality reputation is in the balance. So it's a huge problem, obviously, but it's not something that my readers really bring up too much. And again, I think the key is vetting, just work with a trusted partner, go through Infocom, if there's any question at all, look for certifications, and just keep that, don't take anything for granted, I would say as well.
Right. Helen, same kind of question here is how can folks make sure that the products they're getting, whether it's a microphone or it's a display to put in a restaurant, how can they make sure that what they're getting is actually from the manufacturer?
I mean, definitely, I think, all our exhibitors at our show, they're top quality manufacturers and original equipment and whatnot. So you need to make sure to have that constant contact, like Margo had said. It's not just a matter of IP at stake. It's a matter of brand quality and the reputation behind it that's also at stake.
Absolutely. Sam, as our manufacturer on this panel, go ahead and take a swing, dude, because Margo, I have a buddy who has he speakers and makes other things, and he has a factory in China, and he has told me stories of having to, go over there and make sure that their IP is not being stolen, and he's found several instances. And there are absolutely legal ramifications, and there are other ways that you can do this. But talk for a second from a company standpoint. What's the impact on you guys, and how do you help mitigate that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'd say first off, a couple of things come to mind in that, China for us is a very significant market. We are one of the big leaders in our space in China. And so the market itself is very important. We have had our challenges. It's been pretty publicly out there as some of the challenges that we've had in the past. So while we haven't been, this particular instance hasn't been tied to us. Again, we have had other challenges. I'd say, some of the things that we're doing, or some of the things that I would recommend to the end users are, register your devices, make sure that you're taking those serial numbers and everybody's aware of what's going on there. It's, I think, important for everyone involved. I could tell you one of the big focuses for us, I know this won't be an answer for everyone, but one of the big focuses for us across the board on all of our products is cloud connecting them and starting, and we're putting a lot of emphasis on starting to deliver solutions via the cloud that just can't be delivered if you have to cloud connect them. So even though we're a hardware manufacturer for many of the products that we sell, the more services and capabilities that we can enable by cloud connecting them will start to just force you'll have to have the proper product. You'll know right away that these would be counterfeit or not, and you can start to take actions on that. And so, we are putting a lot of focus around cloud connecting everything we have, which I think will start to help some of the folks around the counterfeiting.
You mentioned something here because I actually have a story about making sure that the serial number is correct. A friend of mine who he's in charge of a theater here locally. He was doing just that, and this gentleman is meticulous, like scary meticulous, about making sure that he registers his products and this, that, and the other. I'm not going to mention the name of the company, but he went to do that with an amplifier, was told that wasn't a valid serial number. Okay, so understand he's purchased this from a reputable, back to Marco's point, from a reputable integrator. Right now, I don't know enough of the story to tell you where the integrator got their product from, but a reputable integrator who he's done business with for years. What is the recourse then at that point? So I'm sitting. This gentleman is sitting there with a amplifier that is not the correct serial number, and it is a. Then at that point, come to find out it was a counterfeit amplifier. What is the recourse then for honestly for the end users, for the integrators, or for the tech managers or the folks putting this stuff in? What can they do? They call Poly and say, hey, I got this. I'm trying to register this thing. Looks like it's not yours.
Well, I'm not sure I'm the proper person to answer that. I imagine that becomes a legal matter. And, I would say that, we spend I would say this week, I spent probably 50-50. I spent a lot of time with end user customers, but I spent a lot of time with our channel partners. And, when we look at the amount of size, half of our go-to-market is tied to our channel partners. And so we spend a lot of time working very closely with them. And so, I think it will be right on down the line of having to get everyone involved and everyone's legal department involved, from the end user to the channel rep to the manufacturer. This is a problem, as Margo said, it's a problem for everyone. Like this it's not a single person or a single part of the chain that's going to solve for these types of things. It's all of us in combination are going to have to work together to solve these types of things. So again, I don't think that I just can say, here's what the magic way to solve this. Again, I think it's a combination of everyone working together that's ultimately going to solve counterfeiting.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Last story here comes to us from our friends over at AV Network. Enterprise Connect this week, AVCore announced an alliance with Lenovo that will integrate AVCore interactive displays across the Lenovo Enterprise clients and expand AVCore's market presence throughout that channel. Helen, I want to start with you on this actually, because this was not just was a significant story about this, but about partnerships in general. How important are shows like EC and like DSE to bring these companies together? Because you've got folks, it's a really old commercial, but I still love it because it did its job. The old Reese's peanut butter commercials where you have you got chocolate in my peanut butter and you got peanut butter in my chocolate. Shows like DSE and shows like EC, you've got folks who are there and they do different things that they complement each other, and then you come out with products like this or announcements like this. How important is that to kind of foster that, where you're putting similar and complementary companies together and next to each other, and then suddenly, a year later, you've got announcements like this?
This collaboration is obviously a natural path. DSC obviously stands for Digital Signage Expo, but as we all know, digital signage is no longer static at all. It's the way the technology is moving, the way the consumers are going. That's why our show is showcased as or themed out as transforming experiences. In today's world, whether it's from a manufacturing standpoint, for a corporate standpoint, anyway, it's all about interactivity and collaboration and the chance to interact and communicate. Our show definitely, I think having trade shows like DSE where people can see each other's product and be like, hey, what are you doing over there? We can work together on this. We can, my display would be perfect for your solution over there, and that interaction or your audio system. That's what it's all about. That's why we do these shows. And then you've got the end users that come in that are showcasing, hey, we thought of for our customer to put these two solutions together and look how much it's interacting. And that gives another kind of level of collaboration or a pathway to be like, you know what, that does work together. Maybe I need to figure out a way where my product can work with something else. So it's not just a collaboration. It's not just a B2B anymore. It's also exhibitor to, retailer to retailer. It's an open system and an exchange of ideas that I think we really try to foster at our show, and we hope to continue to be a part of that and create more partnerships at our events.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, one of the interviews we did previewing DSC was with Draper, and they have a solution that they've partnered with NEC. That's going to be, so a Draper product will be in NEC's booth at Digital Signage Expo this next week. So, Sam, same kind of question to you, only from the manufacturer side. Not to be silly, but a year ago there was a collaboration and Plantronics bought Polycom, right? So not just, it doesn't have to end in a merger and acquisition. Sometimes it does. Sometimes these collaborations do end that way. But sometimes, they're just two great companies that do what they do really well, and then they're able to kind of bring together, bring to market something that, together is better than the sum of the parts. How important are shows like Christ Connect and DSC and Infocom in a couple months to kind of foster that?
So first off, I can't not say, that partnerships to Poly, it's in our DNA. It is just fundamental to what we're doing. You asked me the announcements we made this week. I talked about a key. We talked about the CCX specifically tied to Microsoft. I talked about what we're doing with Amazon. We made announcements with Google. We made announcements with Zoom. So for us, it is in our DNA, in Poly's DNA, to be able to have these strong partnerships, as we just see so much value in it. I think for EC, I just think it just keeps everything fresh. It keeps it's just being able, I think having the ability to see everybody and have where we can demonstrate and show to the end users, to the partner community around the things that we're doing to hook the different ecosystems and different partners together, I think is valuable for everyone. So I think after still recovering from Enterprise Connect this week, I think it's just a great event that helps really showcase these strong partnerships. So hats off to Lenovo and Avcor. I think that's a great partnership there, and I think there will be a lot more partnerships that came out of this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Margot, as we kind of wrap up here, what do partnerships like this do for the tech managers and the integrators who maybe had not heard of either Lenovo, which is unlikely, or Avocor, who, hey, I have a relationship with Lenovo. Now they're doing this partnership with this company. Maybe I should check them out. Is it a chance where this actually introduces folks to a brand new product or a brand new company and lets them kind of discover, hey, this is something I might want to use?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, it depends on if it's bundled or if it's, new distribution strategy there, or how it's actually going to play out. But when you have best practices like that, Avocor, interactivity, Lenovo, obviously they're a titan from computing, peripherals, multinational, et cetera. So if you can bridge those specialties, I mean, the exposure and the incredible market penetration of Lenovo in the office, in the, also again, the changing workplace of today, of tomorrow. So offering that way to bridge those gaps, I think, is really interesting. And I'll just point to the CompTIA 2019. I think I just have it up. It's the IT industry trend report for 2019 from our friends at CompTIA. And I like to look at larger IT trends often and see how they influence and shape AV, and especially in this case, because Lenovo is really it's an IT company. So that's also really fascinating too. How often are we in the AV space and in the pro AV world reporting on these IT behemoths really starting to shape how AV managers are doing their work? So I think that's also really fascinating and notable too. But one of the trends in the CompTIA report, it's number 7, which is in their top 12. But partnerships bridge the gaps in the new tech ecosystem. And so it's exactly what we've been talking about this whole podcast, but just about bringing best practices together, bringing these specialties. In this case, again, Avocor has really they have a fabulous approach to interactivity. It's very seamless. I've demoed their product numerous times at both InfoComm and ISE. It's quite impressive. So it just makes sense. And so to your original question, does it introduce maybe a new product line? Absolutely. So we'll be watching that. And again, that idea of like sort of leading the bridge to the next step in the new tech ecosystem, I think is fascinating. And bravo to the companies that can really make it work for everybody and just add more value to the equation.
See, this is why Margot is one of the smartest people that I know. One more example. So,
great. But again, continue.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, that actually is going to end it for us. Thank you all so much. Helen Kang from DSE, thank you so much. How do people find you? Or by the time this posts, you and I will probably both be in Vegas for Digital Signage Expo. So where do they find out more about that and how they can follow along with the expo this week?
Yeah, go ahead and book your flights now, guys. Come on over to Vegas next week at DSE. It'll be going on from the 26th to the 29th. Definitely check out our website. We've got a lot of new features and a lot of new events, like we had talked about today, a lot of interactivity, a lot of collaborative case studies that will be featured on digitalsignageexpo.net. So thank you very much, Tim.
All right, very good. Ms. Dawahi, it is good as always to see you, and thank you so much for joining us. How do people find you and your insightful insights?
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to be with you guys and learn from you. And Sam and Helen, it's great to meet you, see you on this podcast. I write for both SCN and for AV Technology in the future umbrella. So you can find us at avnetwork.com. And also do check out that CompTIA report. Any AV stakeholder, it's going to be fascinating to look at that. And that's just on comptia.org.
All right, very good. Mr. Sam Kennedy, thank you, sir, from the newly rebranded Poly. How do people find you or find out more about Poly?
So it's so great I get to say this. So you can go to poly.com and
you're telling me that wasn't taken.
I don't know. But the fact that I got to say that in this is fantastic. So definitely go to the poly.com to find out more. You could follow me. You could look at me up on LinkedIn, sam.kennedy. At poly.com. And again, have lots going on. It is a very exciting time for us, as you can imagine. So look forward to hopefully joining you again.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were kind of joking about this off the air a little bit. A dear friend of mine and of AVNation, David Danto, went to work for technically he went to work for Plantronics the week before they rebranded to Power. He doesn't have a whole lot of he doesn't have a whole lot of memorizing, although David's been in the space for a long time.
Something tells me he's going to struggle with it just like everybody else.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's been speccing it and putting it in for years. So absolutely. But thanks so much for joining us, Sam. For me, for Tim Albright, don't follow me on the Twitters. At this point, I'm hoping and praying to God the Blues can make it into the Stanley Cup playoffs, at least for longer than one round this year. But for us, for AVNation, go by the website, avnation.tv. avnation.tv, you'll find this program and a host of others, including a brand spanking new one. We are posting our second episode of the Digital Signage Digest with Lenore Elaine this Tuesday, actually. So this will post on Monday. So you'll get that on Tuesday right before the start of DSC. And speaking of Digital Signage Expo, we will be there as well. You can find all of our coverage on the website as well. While you're there, please check out our underwriter section. These are the supporters that support us financially and help us bring you this program and Digital Signage Expo and InfoCon in about 2 months. So all that and more at avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That's all the time we have for AV Week.